Today, impetuous green thrusts upward towards the light. All nature sings. All things reach toward the light. The light is life, and warmth and rain are life. Words of Robert T. Weston. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Cross Street Chapel's Sunday service. I'm grateful for those who've, braved the weather. It's lovely at the moment, though it's expected to rain, knowing that the sun and the rain are both sources of life for us all. I'm grateful for you who are here, those who are watching and listening from further afield, and I hope that whatever you've come here seeking, be it a space for tears and sorrow, for joy and laughter, a chance to hear hopefully a few words of wisdom, or just a chance to connect with one another or with the divine. Whatever you've come seeking here, I hope it will be found as well as a warm community, as warm as our chalice flame. So we have our call to worship, and these are the words of the Reverend Eileen Karpelis. May all who enter here trust one another so surely that they dare to share the deep fires that burst into anger as much as the sweet spring waters that swell into laughter, the slow erosion of wounded tears as much as the soaring song. And though you may bring your woundedness, I hope you also bring some soaring song as we join with our first hymn, number 3 in the Green Book, Dean Starr's The Joy of Living, hymn number 3. Let us turn now to a time of prayer, which will be followed by our covenant printed in our order of worship. But first, these words. Attendant source of inspiration, hear our prayers as we come this morning to rekindle a fire that has burned since time's beginnings, but is new in each moment. A fire for which we are a part and which is a part of us. A fire that is both within ourselves and beyond all knowledge. A fire that is both our guide and ourselves. A fire that burns with passion and patience. A fire that burns with forgiveness and justice. A fire that burns for us alone and for the whole world. A fire that sets us aside and connects us. For all the gentleness and love and compassion, for the strength and the heat, for a light of knowledge and dark of wisdom, we are grateful today. Amen. And please read with me our covenant as printed in your order of worship and appearing online. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renew the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other and ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. The 1st of May approaching is tomorrow marks Beltane, and I thought it would be appropriate to include a few words from the writer Tess Ward. She writes prayers and liturgies, and I've drawn from her book The Celtic Wheel of the Year, which sort of brings together Celtic pagan elements as well as Christian sort of Christian seasons and such. So this is her description of Beltane. The power of the life force in nature after the long, dark winter time is celebrated by communities in various ways. Where there is little evidence for some of the Celtic seasons, there is a 1st century Irish text which describes Beltane in Ireland and suggests there was a fire festival around May 1st. It was the beginning of the summer pastoral season. 2 fires were lit, and cattle and sheep were driven through them for protection on their way to the summer pastures. There is documented evidence for fire rituals in the British Isles in the 18th and 19th centuries, too. Beltane is a cross-quarter festival and marks the coming of summer and life. It is the opposite of Samhain on October 31st, which opens the winter season and is about death. Beltane means bright or goodly fire. It possibly derived from the worship of Belanos, the pagan sun god. Druids and their successors lit fires, sometimes made of 9 sacred trees high on the hills, to bring the power of the sun down to earth. To this day, there is the annual procession up Carlton Hill in Edinburgh. The tradition of jumping the fire derives from a notion of purifying and protection for the summer months. Men, and when the flames were lower, women and young people, jumped the fire 3 times to ask for good fortune on pregnancies, crops, travels, and future partners. Some would walk round them sunwise 3 times. Some would say prayers whilst doing this. Children were carried across the smoldering ashes. The ashes were then scattered on the crops in the field or taken home to start new fires in the hearths. In contemporary rituals, people might leave something they wish to shed from the winter and seek blessing on an intention for the summer as they jump. May was the time when the livestock would be taken up to the summer pastures or mountains called the shylings. I'll get correct pronunciations afterwards, thank you. There would be a happy procession there of families with the animals, and everyone would greet each other after being indoors in the dark months. This need in our spirits to greet the lengthening sunlight is ritualized in all the Maytime celebrations as they evolved over time and in different areas. So, Tess Ward's description of Beltane in the Celtic Wheel of the Year. And you now have a chance to share your joys and your sorrows, your hopeful intentions for summer, as well as what you may wish to shed as winter finally and decisively passes on. If you want to light a candle and say a few words, please come to the microphone so those who are online and those who use the loop system may be able to hear. You are, of course, invited to light a candle in silence, and if you're online, please type into the chat box and we will read your message out. And as always, if you wish to remain seated, know that your presence here is enough. So I'll light one candle with 2 sort of messages for it, both sort of ones of joy. As I'd mentioned, I think last week, Thomas had his EHCP review this past Wednesday. It went very well. We were quite pleased with the conversation that was had. It's the first step in what sort of will now be several weeks of redetermining his outcomes and resources that are available. But everything was pointing sort of quite positively at the meeting. So thank you for those who held us in your thoughts on Wednesday. And then a candle as well, just of gratitude for Friday, of which I certainly had a lot of fun, and I hope people who attended did. And just, really, it's wonderful to have a space where a minister can do that, can have a bit of fun, can paint their nails, which are still up, and have a good play. So thank you so much.
Right, I'd like to send the light of that candle and lots more light to all young people everywhere who are working hard to take summer exams. And right now, I would like to congratulate our oldest grandson who took his music GCSE and got almost the top marks.
for all those joys and sorrows here spoken, and those that remain silently in our hearts. Please join with me in singing our next hymn in the Purple Book, number 28, Dear Weaver of Our Lives Design by Nancy Dorian, hymn number 28. Our second reading is entitled Hope by Peter Fleck. From classical Greek mythology, Pandora comes to us, a woman of beauty and grace. When she is given in marriage to Prometheus' brother, Zeus provides as a dowry a box containing all the evils of the world and hope as well, with the understanding that she will not open it. But Pandora, driven by curiosity, does open it, and the evils escape before she can restore the lid. Only hope remains confined in the box. Dr. Carl Menninger once noted that the Encyclopedia Britannica devotes many columns to the topic of love and many more to faith. But hope, poor little hope, she is not even listed. Indeed, sometimes it seems as if hope were still imprisoned in Pandora's box. Dr. Menninger's reference is to the famous passage from the 13th chapter of Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. So faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love. These words present one of the most eloquent statements on love in Western literature. But lately, two reservations have weakened that conviction. First, no reason is given in the text why these three, faith, hope, and love, abide. The second reservation is more substantive. I am no longer convinced that the greatest of the three is love. And if it is, I have begun to think that it should share the privileged position with hope. For our lives are based on hope. Without it, life withers. Hope and faith are related. Paul defines faith as the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. If we have faith, says Paul, we believe our hopes will be fulfilled. Paul offers more than mere worldly optimism here.
Yet religious liberalism is an optimistic tradition, reflecting the mood of the 18th century Enlightenment and of 19th century rational humanism. But this mood could not do justice to, nor does it hold up under, the catastrophes of the 20th century. The 2 world wars, the Holocaust, famine for hundreds of millions, the invention of means of total annihilation, the rising threat to our environment, the devastating epidemic of AIDS. Blind optimism is not a realistic option, nor is it a spiritual one. Yet, though our optimism fails us, religious liberals do not recognize pessimism as a valid option. The spiritual option is to find the line between optimism and pessimism that corresponds to the realities of life. The time of hope supersedes optimism and pessimism and transforms fear. But hope must be more than a feeling. It must be related to doing. In Nazi-occupied Holland, hope became possible only when one acted and got others to act. Only then was fear transformed. Only then did one experience hope. Some thoughts on hope by Peter Fleck. Let us turn now to a period of meditation. Let us enter into a divine, holy space, set apart for us, made special by our presence and our acknowledgement of its time and purpose. Let our breathing slow. Let our focus narrow from the general noise and sight and sound around us and within us to a single point, a single conversation within our mind's ear. Hear the distinct sound of your own thought. Acknowledge it, for although we sometimes have troublesome thoughts, we too find their words of beauty and love. Bring your attention now to your breath. Breathe deep, but not beyond your comfort. Feel yourself naturally draw in breath through your nose, the coolness brushing against your nostrils. Then breathe out through the mouth, the warm air touching your lips. Repeat this slowly and deliberately. Focus on each detail, each sensation. If you find your mind wander, that's okay. Acknowledge it and then return. In and out. In and out. Creator, in whose creation we reside and who resides within us, let us love ourselves. Let us expel shame, choosing instead forgiveness and care. Let us find goodness and gentleness for ourselves and in our reflections for others. May our time go to lifting up the downtrodden and giving rest to the weary, including ourselves when we find ourselves so composed. Creator, remind us that we are creators, and that in our creating, we may guide the world away from shame and shadow to clarity and light. And so we enter a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, and personal prayer. A few notices. No, we're not looking at notices, don't worry. I skipped down a bit. Yes, thank you. Let us sing our next hymn, number 65 in the Purple Book, Ruth Duck's How Good It Is, What Pleasure Comes, hymn number 65. Last night the rain spoke to me slowly, saying what joy to come falling out of the brisk cloud, to be happy again in a new way on the earth. That's what it said as it dropped, smelling of iron, and vanished like a dream of the ocean into the branches and the grass below. Then it was over. The sky cleared. I was standing under a tree. The tree was a tree with happy leaves, and I was myself. And there were stars in the sky that were also themselves at which moment my right hand was holding my left hand, which was holding the tree, which was filled with stars and the soft rain. Imagine the long and wondrous journeys still to be ours. Last night, the rain spoke to me, by Mary Oliver. Back in 2011, there was an informal debate on Twitter, specifically French Twitter. The editor of a French magazine, Laurent Geoffrin, attacked linguistically people who had written to him, younger people who had used the word tu, as in the French word for you. Of course, French has a more formal word, vous, and that was the level of respect and dignity that Mr. Geoffrin expected. So his response was, qui vous autorise à me tutoyer? Who authorized you to use tu? Of course, no one authorized them to use tu, as authority does not quite work that way. When I was teaching music, I was very conscious that eventually the students may realize they don't actually have to do what I ask of them. But in this respect, let us consider divine language, how we approach and engage with God, with nature, the spiritual world, goodness, perfection, however we define that otherness that extends beyond our own self. Do you use tu or vu? Some prefer the expansive and heightened Latin words. Others seek out earthly Anglo-Saxon terms. The tu versus vu debate brings to mind a question within religion: the extent to which divinity is part of the world or beyond it. Is there a rigid separation between the sacred and the profane? Sacred as in holy, that is meaning set apart. The holiness of the sacrifice, for instance, that set apart for burning. The rest of the world then lies within the profane, profanus, literally outside of the temple. This separation is seen in many ways in faith. The questions tackled by the early church councils on Jesus' nature, what it meant to be wholly human and wholly divine. We see it in the ancient Jewish purity laws that determined community and what was unblemished enough for sacrifice. And we see it in language. It is important as well to remember that religious language itself was set apart. Hence the Latin Mass being sung across Europe and the world. This, in one way, created a community, but at the expense of understanding. Although one might point out that the understanding itself was extended beyond literal translation. Ritual, religion, and spirituality, divine encounter. These words cannot be translated easily, and harder still is finding the words to illustrate the fullness of their meaning in the world. Hebrew as well was for the Jews a sacred language, whereas local languages such as Yiddish served the mundane areas of life. It has only been since the late 1800s that it has been used as a living common language. Islam as well promotes the study of Arabic and sees a holiness in the language as spoken by Allah. As a product of the Reformation, we may find the vernacular more appealing than the idea of language that is set apart for divinity. We thank Prometheus for stealing fire. We seek to create our own ambrosia, food for the gods. It is in our religious tradition to seek a greater access for others to this spiritual realm, a recognition that the strengthening, clarifying, and yet humbling of divine encounter will be essentially personal. But we are not without our separated language. The letters exchanged between the British and Transylvanian Unitarians in the 1830s were in Latin as a language of mutual understanding. More recently, some churches have begun using more common language to describe their worship or their services. They speak about service I remember a while ago at a national conference. I'm not even sure if they use the term service. It may have been a gathering or a celebration. Other substitutions followed: song rather than hymn, candle instead of chalice, theme talk instead of sermon. The idea being that newcomers, especially the unchurched, would feel more comfortable in a setting without religious language. For those who have had a painful experience of church, this was a way to engage them and to help them feel supported by the community. And I'd stress this was a decision not instituted I don't say it as an advocate or as an enemy, just as a fascinated witness. And perhaps as a guilty party, as we're approaching our flower communion, which we explicitly call here a flower communion, and yet the posters and promotional material that I send out talks about it as a celebration of flowers, aware that for many who might walk past our building may not make the connection of what a flower communion actually is. But returning to divine language, can we become too fixated on the celestial that we forget the immediate, that the connection with divinity may just as easily occur at the tobacco shop next door, as Wallace Shawn puts it in My Dinner with Andre? Divine encounters are so difficult to express anyway. Prominent thinkers like Kierkegaard argued that those living in the religious sphere, as he put it, could never describe what they saw, not even to other people who were experiencing the same thing. Imagine people standing atop mountains. They all witness these incredible views, but they can never call out loud enough to one another. That is a bit of a depressing image, I understand. And this points to an ancient tension within religion, the conflict between community and separation. Holiness links a sense of wholeness with a sense of being set apart. All of which brings me back to a view that I've oft repeated. The religious scholar S. Brent Plate's definition of blasphemy, the co-mingling of the sacred and the profane, that which is set apart from the world and that which resides outside the temple. With this description, we are liable to see blasphemy as a tool, just like any other, that when used inappropriately is unnecessarily destructive, but when wielded carefully and purposefully, achieves a favored end. This end being the breakup of ironclad assumptions, previously held truths that shift in the sand and may no longer be fit for purpose. A sounding horn that awakens people from their sleep. Perhaps it is our task to set about change, to find the presumptions and assumptions in the world that hold back divine expression. Our language has found a way to be inherently blasphemous, seeking to engage the mind in its vernacular. And I imagine with Beltane and with the advent of spring and with this conversation about these young people attacking that poor French magazine editor, that this change is necessary. It is a necessary expression itself of the divine, the young shoot pushing through the concrete, a beautiful image of nature conquering the destructive habits of humans in pursuit of trying to resolve climate change. When we speak, when we communicate to ourselves or to others or to divine presence, it is with a hope of being understood, to be accepted as human as we are. The tree was a tree, writes Mary Oliver, to strip away pretense and to be known without any other claim. And this does not diminish metaphor. The beauty lies with the knowledge that our full selves encapsulate so much. Just as the tree, Ms. Oliver, the stars and the rain become one in their community. Amen. So now it's time for a few notices. If you're in need of pastoral care, please speak with me, or if you're online, you can write to minister@crossstreetchapel.org.uk. Write as well if you wish to join our mailing list. We're grateful as well for all of the volunteering and help that helps keep our worship going and keep the chapel alive. So do sign up if you're interested in providing readings, flowers, greeting, assisting with the tea and coffee or the IT. How's the IT been today, Joe? Haven't broken it yet. Excellent. So we have a robust system for those who are unsure. And as well, if you're not comfortable signing up or if you're not sure of your schedule, speak with me. I'm going to sort of be altering things a little bit to try and make the volunteering feel a bit more accessible, so people don't necessarily have to know their calendars, for instance, in advance or such. So please do let me know if you're interested in volunteering. We're grateful as well for any financial contributions that can assist the mission of the chapel. You can donate online at justgiving.com/crossstreetchapelmanchester. And I can't recall what other notices we have popping up, although I think I still have my recital poster, so apologies for not having that changed.
There's the Climate Day on the 20th of May in Sheffield.
Thank you. So that's 10 to 4 in Sheffield, at Upper Chapel, Sheffield. They are hosting a Climate Day sort of workshop and conference, 20th of May. Please do let Andy or Maud know if you're planning to attend that.
Our flower celebration.
Flower celebration, and our flower communion is the 28th of May, and that's done to sort of coincide with the Manchester Flower Festival. If you haven't been to a flower communion, the idea is everyone brings a flower, and together they create this sort of beautiful bouquet, and then at the end everyone receives a different flower. So it symbolizes those gifts that we bring as well as the gifts that we receive in our community. And this year actually marks the 100th anniversary of the first flower communion, which was a product of Norbert and is it Maya Čapek of the Prague Unitarians. So we're grateful for what is, I think, a very distinctly Unitarian ritual and service. So that's the 28th of May, and it's followed by a bring and share meal, so please do sign up if you're able to join us for that. And I think
The only other thing is the recital on the final Friday of the month.
Thank you. Yes. We have time, so we will make the announcement next week about next month's recital. So please do join us. That'll be the 26th of May. And it's the Dunelm duo. I think so, piano and flute. It'll be spectacular, as our recitals often are. So are there any announcements or notices from the congregation? Let us then sing our final hymn, number 133 in the Green Book, How Can I Keep From Singing? Hymn number 133.
you, Ruin, for the music. Thank you, Joe, for the IT. Thank you, Sonia, for these flowers, and for you and Robin to help set up, and Robin for the greeting. Do we have anyone to help with the tea and coffee? Thank you. Thank you, Anna, for the tea and coffee. And thank you to all of you for creating and sharing worship today. We close with the words of Audre Lorde. Without community, there is no liberation. Amen.